Hey guys, this is Vinod, and my blog is medschooleasy.wordpress.com. So today I want to talk about a few common mistakes that pre-med students make when applying to med school that can cost you guys the opportunity to go into med school and to actually practice medicine. So these are pretty high yield points. So there are about a few points that I want to go over. So starting with, before the application and after the application are sort of the two areas I want to focus on. So before the application, the two common mistakes I see are, number one, not having enough clinical experience on your resume. And what I mean by clinical experience is volunteering, shadowing, possibly research. So these three things are very easy to do, and they're honestly important to do to see if you actually want to do medicine. And as doctors looking at your application will want to know that you've actually seen what life being a doctor is like. So that's why it's important to have clinical experience. So this is really easy. Just cold email people at your school, at your college, or if you have family friends or friends who are doctors, you could possibly spend a week with them, a weekend with them, or something, and just be able to put that on your resume. Number two is academics and not having a good GPA and MCAT. So there are a lot of things you can do if you do find yourself in this situation, and the best thing is to take a gap year and to work on either doing more classes and getting your GPA up, or spending more time studying for the MCAT and attempting that again. So I have a video talking about the gap year, which I'll link to below, and you can check that out. So I've talked about a couple things before the application, that clinical experience and academics, and now I want to focus on the application, because I feel like the actual MCAS application that pre-med submit, oftentimes there's not a lot said about it and people make a lot of mistakes. So the most important thing with the MCAS application is you need to submit it like as soon as possible, because of the rolling admissions technique that medical schools use to fill their seats. It's just a numbers game. If you apply earlier in the cycle, there's a much higher chance of you not only getting into med school, but getting into somewhere you want to go. Let's say you're from New York and you really want to be there. It is really important to just get that application as soon as possible, so that you have the best chance of getting into every school. One way to think about it is that as you wait longer, more and more seats are filled, and the number of medical school admissions has to decrease over time. So that would be my first point with the application. Submit on June 1st or as soon to June 1st as possible. It takes a few weeks to process everything, so technically submitting on June 1st is more like submitting June 15th. So keep that in mind, that there's like a 2 or 3 week lag, and as you wait, that lag can become longer and longer. So that's point number one. Point number two is not applying to enough medical schools. So I know when most people apply to college, you apply in the range of like 10 to 20. You apply to 10 to 20 colleges for undergraduate admission, possibly higher, maybe even 30 in some extreme cases. But with medical schools, 30 or 40 is kind of the average, and that's scary that people are applying to that many medical schools, but it's that hard to get into that you really do want to maximize your chances. So I would recommend applying to as many as you can afford to, or that you are willing to apply to, and to apply to different places in the US too, because ultimately it doesn't really matter necessarily where you go, as long as you have an opportunity to practice medicine. So that's my second point. Then my third point is not spending enough time on your personal statement and written materials. That's another common mistake I see, and really it's really simple to work on this. Even I myself am not a very good writer, but in my college we had a writing center. We had resources that maybe weren't that well advertised, but you could reach out to these people and fix meetings with professors and people who actually are very experienced with writing medical school or any other grad school admissions essay. So when I was applying, I met with an advisor probably like 10, 15, 20 times to go over drafts of both the primary application and all my secondary writing samples. So that was tremendously helpful. I would highly recommend checking out a writing center, or even if you have an English teacher, forming a relationship with them and seeing if they can help you out. So that has to do with the personal statement, and spending time on that. And the final thing I want to talk about is interviewing. And a lot of people think, hey, I'm a great interviewer. It's really easy to interview. I just have to talk about myself and talk about a few of my interests. But this is really, really difficult when you're under an intense, scrutinized situation, where nowadays a lot of the MMI interviews, you have to interview in front of a panel of people, or you have to keep your energy up for like many, many interviews throughout the day. So being a good interviewer is actually an art. And I'll have some links that you can check out below, about books that could help you with interviewing. An important resource for you guys, a lot of colleges where you go to undergrad can help you out with this, is actually having mock interviews. And the reason these are important is because they actually just they make you experience what it's like being there, like sitting down, interviewing, wearing a suit, for example. And even just like that is even uncomfortable. And it's a great experience to even be asked questions about current events in medicine. These are things that when I went to my mock interview, I had no idea would be asked. And about what I thought about ethical situations. These are all things that I would have never prepped myself for, and I knew, looking back, would have been a huge surprise if I was actually in an interview and asked about this in a real medical school interview. So those are a few points I have. So again, we covered things you could do before your application, common mistakes before your application, how to solve them, and then a few common mistakes that I find with people actually writing and submitting their application. So again, as always, let me know what you guys think about this video. And I'm always available to you guys via email, vinodravikumarmd@gmail.com, or my Twitter, vinodravikumarmd. So feel free to reach out. Best of luck with your studies, and have fun. Take care, guys.